This is KGW News at noon.
Good afternoon, I'm Drew Carney, and we start today's newscast with a look at some local headlines. Nurses at two more Portland area Providence hospitals are voting on whether or not to strike today. The process started just a few hours ago. So here's the deal. If they vote yes, there won't automatically be a strike, but a yes vote today will give the nurses union the power to call one if negotiations with Providence don't go as hoped. The nurses union says it's focusing on COVID safety standards and affordable health care, among other things. Nurses at Providence St. Vincent Medical Center already voted to authorize a strike back on May 3rd. Also today, Clackamas County elections officials are expected to provide a timeline for when ballots from last week's primary will be counted. There were as many as 60,000 ballots that went out to Clackamas County voters with a printing error. Now the elections office has to duplicate and count each one of those ballots by hand. They are working under a deadline because Oregon law states that all ballots must be counted and certified by June 13th in order to count. Last headline here, starting tomorrow, you will need a permit to visit the historic Columbia River Highway in the Gorge. The $2 permit gives visitors access to what's known as the Waterfall Corridor. You'll need one permit per car. Buses and people on bikes will not need one. The goal of this new permit system is to reduce congestion in the gorge. And that's a look at some of today's local headlines. Rodney Hill, can we get a weather headline, please, from the Weather Center?
And what about a weather highlight, even?
Either
we
will
have
work.
One of those. It's a nice day. We are dry. Here's the visible satellite picture, and it's on a black background. So the darker colors down around Salem, that's pretty much just sunny. And then, of course, the white shades indicate some cloudiness. More up around Astoria and kind of broken clouds over Portland. Here's Lincoln City, our Chinook Winds Casino Resort camera. Beautiful, partly cloudy day underway. Looks like the tide's out a little bit, and it's 59 degrees in Lincoln City. So that is certainly a lovely day. And the clouds have been thinning a little bit throughout the afternoon. So we'll either stay partly sunny where we are right now, or we'll continue just to gradually become mostly sunny throughout the afternoon. We're at 65. We were in the mid-50s this morning, so we've warmed up about 10 degrees. All the information shows we're not going to have a huge warm up this afternoon, so I'll leave us at 71 degrees for a nice comfortable afternoon at 4 p.m. All dry tonight. I am tracking a chance of rain tomorrow, a likely period of rainy weather on Thursday, and that's all coming up on my 7-day forecast.
All right, more from Rod later in the show. Right now, we want to get back to some other headlines. We start with this, a new report giving some historical context to what we've all gone through the past 2 years living with COVID. KGW's Tim Gordon spoke to an Oregon State University professor who compared COVID-19 to the flu pandemic of 1918.
For more than 2 years, our lives have been changed by a worldwide pandemic. Now, U.S. officials are suggesting a big surge of COVID-19 could infect 100 million Americans this coming fall and winter. That's hard news to hear, but it's not surprising for people who've studied the 1918 flu pandemic. Experts just published an article comparing that outbreak to our current pandemic to answer a critical question.
Which is, how do pandemics end? Do they ever end? And what are the aftermath or aftermaths of a pandemic? Can we see that historically? What might we be able to expect, or what kinds of questions should we be asking ourselves?
Christopher McKnight Nichols is the director of OSU's Center for Humanities and a history professor. He, along with other experts, see many similarities between the influenza pandemic of the past and our current COVID crisis. First, that both diseases will very likely live on and take lives.
So, short answer is no, pandemic isn't over. And the long answer is the same thing with the flu. The flu's still with us, right? 100 plus years later. COVID will probably still be with us in 100 years.
Nichols knows that after 2+ years, COVID fatigue is real and understandable. But he is concerned that, like in the early 1900s, people ignoring the facts and deciding it's over will make us less safe.
So one of the things you see in the historical record is mayors and public health officials hoping the pandemic is over and yanking off measures, even when they didn't have vaccines and other things. And then you have much higher surges, a second peak that's worse.
Some of the methods of fighting disease haven't changed much. In 1918, they used quarantines, similar hygiene practices, and what we call social distancing today. But there are differences between now and then, when efforts to develop effective vaccines did not work. That's not the case today. Modern medicine and public health infrastructure is much better. But Nichols says the science still isn't the final decider.
from my perspective as a historian, the ending of a pandemic is political or psychological. It isn't biological or epidemiological. And that's something that we could get across to people almost regardless of their politics.
So learning from the past is, in essence, realizing it's up to us to responsibly deal with a disease that will be with us at some level for a very long time.
We need to figure out how to take on board those lessons and make better judgments moving forward, which may mean restricting our lives a bit. And I think we need to be comfortable with that.
Tim Gordon, KGW News.
In Southern Oregon, Roseburg residents put up a memorial to honor homeless people who have lost their lives on the streets. This memorial sits under the Washington Avenue Bridge, and each cross you see here represents a life that's been lost since 2020. The woman behind the memorial has lived on the street herself, and she hopes it inspires people to make a change.
This doesn't have to happen. Like, there's a way we can go about this, that this can be prevented. I mean, you know, just having somewhere safe to be, you know, like not necessarily indoors, but like just giving them somewhere to be.
Community leaders there in Roseburg are looking for solutions to the homeless crisis. Just earlier this year, they bought a 7,400 square foot building to serve as a navigation center. That building is expected to open up next month, and officials say it'll house at least 40 people. The Portland Water Bureau, meanwhile, is trying to make water from the Bull Run watershed safer when it comes to lead contamination. The Bureau is adding small amounts of two naturally occurring substances to make the water less corrosive. Those substances are soda ash and carbon dioxide. Corrosion attacks any lead-based plumbing that remains in local homes and businesses. The trick is to make these changes to the water without changing the flavor.
And nobody wants the wonderful Bull Run water to change. It's great. We love it the way it is. No, the Bull Run water, your taste from Bull Run water will not change.
The city's next major investment is a new water filtration facility to remove some microorganisms and other potential contaminants. Federal regulators require that gets all wrapped up by the year 2027. A Ukrainian family in Happy Valley is taking in refugees who have escaped the ongoing war in Ukraine. KGW's Galen Etland shares what these refugees are faced with, basically trading in one challenge for another.
Notes of sadness fill this living room. A family in Happy Valley sings a prayer for their home country, Ukraine. Newlyweds Irina and Ivan spoke through a translator.
When we left Mariupol,
A city now largely destroyed by Russian troops.
everything you see on the news, everything that's happening, this is reality.
The couple escaped in March with nothing but 2 bags, arriving to the U.S. in April.
More Ukrainian people will come.
Victoria and her husband have lived in the U.S. for about 5 years and are now housing Ivan and Irina, their extended family. They have many more loved ones stuck in Ukraine.
And sometimes they hear shootings, very scary. We are worried about them.
They say it's too expensive to bring everyone here, especially since it takes months for refugees to get work authorization to help support themselves in Oregon. Meanwhile, the situation in Ukraine remains dire. Many left with little food and water as cities burn and crumble. The memories are raw.
Every time the shooting happened, or the bombing happened, we gathered in our rooms. We didn't know how much more or how much more time we have.
The couple had just bought their first home in Mariupol, a home that's now destroyed. They're expecting a baby in September, which will be born into a foreign country and culture.
She's just amazed how the people are so kind and caring around here. Even her nieces and nephews' school that offered gift cards and cards.
Gratitude for safety, but also notes of sadness and hope for all of those left behind.
Again, that was Galen Etlin reporting for us. That family, by the way, does have a GoFundMe set up to help support them as they try to get work authorization. You can find that and other ways to help at kgw.com/Ukraine.